just so comfortable.
Hey Sal, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Just getting over a crappy cold that swept through our household.
Fun times.
Fun times. I think we're cursed with school holidays, hey?
Do you know what? I was just about to say, didn't last school holidays this kind of stuff happen? Yeah.
Yes, except last school holidays, it wiped out the whole 2 weeks because it was one at a time dropping, whereas
Yeah.
all three of us literally dropped at the same time this time around. So we've still got a week of school holidays left, so we should be good to go.
It's going around, I tell you. I think everyone that I've spoke to lately has been sick, so
So much going around.
fun.
I didn't train for a whole week.
Oh, how did that feel?
You know what? It's interesting because we spoke the last couple of podcasts about emotional attachment to nutrition.
Yeah.
And I think emotional attachment to exercise is also something that is a part of that as well.
Yeah.
Because in the past, when I've been sick, to actually get me to rest is a pretty tough task. And I think a lot of our listeners probably have experienced this in the past, in that when they've been sick, like they've pushed through and kept trying to exercise because they're worried that they'll lose fitness, or they're worried that they'll lose their gains, or whatever. So I think, yeah, emotional attachment to exercise is a thing as well, not just the nutrition, which we've been focusing on. Um, like I said, in the past, I would have tried to push through, and I would have at least like tried to do something each day, whether it was like lower intensity or whatever. Um, but I actually just completely rested, and I didn't have any guilt attached to it whatsoever.
That's so good. And that's where I think when you know you're at a pretty good place, like, and I think we've all been there. I know I have, and again this week I was a little bit sick at the start of the week. So, but just saying, like, when I text you and I was like, I'm gonna go today because I feel I can, but the next day I was like, yeah, no, not happening. It's just about knowing and being okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. And my coach is very big on, just like yours is very big on, if you're not well, like you need to rest.
Yeah.
There's no pushing through it. And I think that old thing of sweating it out is a load of crap.
Yeah.
When your body's fighting a sickness, like, or when it's recovering from something, it is requiring a lot of energy to do that. And then if you go and use up that energy trying to recover from a training session that you shouldn't have been doing anyway, you're just going to set yourself back even further.
And then it leads into things like possible injuries. And I mean, we would talk more about this in a separate podcast, but there's so much that can happen from that. So just rest.
Yeah.
Moral of the story, just rest.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's all well and good. So when you've got an injury, so I think this is probably something that we can expand on a bit further, and especially since we've been talking about these emotional attachments. Like when you've got an injury, it depends on what the injury is.
Yeah.
You can often still train in some way, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you've got like a shoulder injury, you can still train legs. You could still sit on the bike and you could still do legs. If you've got a leg injury, then perhaps you can just focus on like some upper body weights or something like that. So you can train through injuries. The biggest rule of thumb is if you're in pain, like if whatever you're doing, you're actually feeling pain, then you're not going to be getting stronger. So you've got to use that as your guide. So like, don't go and take some anti-inflammatories or some painkillers and then go and train and lose the ability to listen to your body. But if you are sick, rest. Guilt-free.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
freaking rest and give your body the ability to fight it the best that it possibly can.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And then with that as well, like eat good food. Don't go, okay, well, I can't train. I can't go to the gym. I'm sick, I'm just going to eat like hot chips and chocolate for the whole week.
Yeah.
Think about what the food can do for you and help you to get better. And if you're having like your salads and your fruits and your veggies, all of that sort of stuff, plenty of water, you're going to be giving your body the nutrients that it needs to get better quicker.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
So,
Yeah.
so it all ties in, really. Thanks,
It
universe, for
does.
allowing our week to tie into what's been going on.
How kind of you.
How kind of you. We could have given this information to our listeners without having been sick. Just, just saying.
It's spot good though, right?
So last week we talked about from a coach's perspective in terms of helping to break that emotional connection with nutrition. And we started to touch on macros and why I like to use macros with my clients instead of meal planning. But what we thought that we could do this week is kind of do a little flip. We didn't say thank you to our sponsors. I've just delved right in there. Kojo Coffee, Fernwood Salisbury. We're very excited. We get excited.
We do.
But we thought we could go from like a different perspective. And I said to Sally, what are some things? Because for me, I've been doing macros for a good few years now, like a decent amount of time. But for you, Sal, it's a lot more recent.
Yeah.
So I thought we could do a flip and say, like, from a client's perspective or an athlete's perspective, what are some really key things that you learned through the process of implementing macros into your regime?
All right. So I've got three big ones, and then just a little, I guess, important note at the end. So we'll break them down one at a time. So the first one is food freedom. So what I mean by food freedom is that freedom of having foods in macros comes after you understand the numbers. So at first for me, tracking, it kind of felt restrictive because it's not, but it kind of felt restrictive because I didn't know how to count my macros and how to play with them and how to adjust them. So I felt very restricted at first. But once I learned how to manipulate the app and use those numbers, it became like so liberating, like just so satisfying. Like I understood what foods I needed to fuel my body because you get to see each what food has in it and the fat it has in it, the carbs, the protein. So you know which one's right for you at that time. So you know, like a bulk versus a cut and stuff like that. Um, so I just found I was able to fuel myself and with no guilt. With no guilt, even if I did have, say, ice cream at night, which I do, I had no guilt because in my app it's using the healthy foods and it's tracking all in my macros. There was no
Yeah.
guilt.
That's a really good point. And I sort of had a bit of a thought as you were saying that, like when you first started, you found it quite overwhelming. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people do find that. So, for you guys that are listening that have never tracked macros before, if you think about it in like a step-by-step plan, okay? So, if you said step number one, the first thing that you want to do is find yourself an app that allows you to be able to track macros effectively. There's a few apps out there. So there is everybody's favorite, which I've actually forgotten, MyFitnessPal. A lot of people use MyFitnessPal. For quite some time, I used one that was called My Macros Plus. There's a bunch of other ones out there. We use Kahunas because that's the coaching software that I use with all of my clients. But you just want to make sure that whichever one you choose to use, that it's got a pretty big database in it already. But also keep in mind it's got to have the ability to add foods to the database as well. So initially, like if there's things that aren't in the database, you might need to use the nutritional panel to add them in, like to get your foods in. So I'd say first step is get yourself a really good app that you can actually utilize to track. The second step, and I don't know if you remember, this is how we actually got you getting a bit used to it, is just continue initially to eat what you normally eat and do that for a good couple of weeks. So if you're someone who has previously, and this is what we did with you, Sal, someone who has previously been on a meal plan, just stick to that meal plan initially.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just eat what you eat normally, just stick to that initially without actually worrying about hitting any of your macro goals. And what you're going to do for those couple of weeks is there's quite a few things that's going to happen as a result. Number one, you're going to get used to actually inputting them into your macro tracker, which often that's, a really big part of like navigating macros is just learning how to use these apps and understanding that unless you're someone who, picks up an app and straight away knows how to use it, like that's going to be a learning process in itself.
Yeah.
Learning how to change like how many grams, or learning how to add new foods in, learning how to find foods in the database. One of the things that I found with Kahunas, which, because I'm not really that good with technology, one of the things that I found with Kahunas that became a real time saver was that you could copy and paste meals from one day to the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Which if you tend to eat the same things day in, day out, like that's a massive game changer. So you're going to learn how to actually navigate your app without necessarily having to worry about anything else, right? Because already this is changing so much about what you do. So it's going to help you essentially get practice in logging your food, okay? The second thing that it's going to do is make you start to become aware of what you're putting in your mouth.
Yeah, that's my next point. Yeah.
For a lot of us, a lot of people just unconsciously eat and
Mm-hmm.
don't think about how much they're actually eating. So for a lot of people, it's not even about what they're eating. Sometimes it's about the quantities of what they're eating. And it's just about getting that awareness of what you're actually eating.
Mm-hmm.
Then also that starts to bring in just naturally a little bit of accountability.
Yeah.
Because whether it's you looking at it and being accountable to yourself at the end of the day, or it's a coach looking at it, you're going to have that level of accountability. So I would say start just a couple of weeks without changing anything and just track your normal foods.
Yeah.
Then what you're going to see is a baseline of where you're at. So then you can start playing around. You can start looking at it. If you've had your macro goals worked out, or you've jumped online and you've worked out some, estimated macro goals, then you can start playing around and going, okay, well, I'm noticing that when I have this food and I put this food in, it puts me way over on my fats. Or when I have this food in, it gives me a really good protein amount. And then you start playing around with them. You start adding them in. Again, it becomes a little bit of gamification. And then all of a sudden, you start to really get an idea of what foods are going to tick the boxes and what foods maybe aren't going to tick your boxes, or they're going to shove you like way over on certain macros. All of a sudden, you've got this food freedom that you spoke of.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense because again, at the start, yep, I just ate what I normally ate and I put it in. And it didn't actually take that long though in saying that. Like I reckon it was like 3 weeks after and I was like starting to change things and it became easy because I already understood how to use the app. So that's yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah.
It's really important that you just said it took you 3 weeks, right? And you just said it didn't take you that long. I often have clients who, after 1 week, are saying, "Oh my God, I just can't get my head around this. Like, this is so hard." And it's like, but you've only been doing this for a week. It's
That's it. Give
mindset.
it time.
It's
Yes.
mindset. Because in your eyes, you're like, it only took me 3 weeks.
But it's that change, isn't it? Like nothing is going to change and happen straight away. If I gave up after a week, I wouldn't be where I am now. Like, being able to manipulate the macros and put what I want in there. So it again, it's just about understanding we're learning a new skill here and it takes time.
And I think that people don't understand that that's what it is. You are learning
Yeah.
a new skill.
Yeah, definitely.
And the cool thing is, though, that this skill, unlike a blanket meal plan, this skill is something that you can then take forward and it can help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
Take
100%.
control.
100%. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good point. My second one, I think the biggest takeaway for me was you covered it a bit there. Tracking taught me a lot of awareness. Now, what I mean with awareness is it was awareness, not obsession. So let's just get that right. Because I think sometimes people, when they macro count, can get obsessed with it. But
Mm-hmm.
this was awareness rather than obsession. And look, it isn't something you have to do forever if you don't need like have a goal that you have to, um, unless you choose to. But the real goal, I think, there is to recognize what balanced proportions and meals look like and feel like without relying on that. So what I mean by that is when I first started, I did rely on my app. But now if I was to, there's been multiple times when I've been stuck at the hospital with my daughter and, I can now look at some lettuce and some cucumber and things and be like, okay, I know now what 100 grams looks like. So I can, I'm aware of what those amounts look like so that I have the freedom to change that in a situation like that. Um, and yeah, just aware of the foods and what they hold. So before, I might have had, say, even oats, but knowing different oats and what the nutritional value of different oats, now I know exactly what oats I'm going to go for. Or so it's a lot of awareness that comes
Mm.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, not just in like your tracking app, but utilizing your scales, because
Hmm.
it's, yeah, awareness, not obsession. I think it's a fine line, isn't it?
Hmm. Oh
Because
yeah.
I think you've really got to create the awareness first. So by weighing everything that you eat initially, it actually is really important. And learning what 100 grams of something looks like and weighing that out initially, it's not obsessive. It is just creating that awareness.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, like in terms of, the everyday person, like a lot of us are creatures of habit and we do tend to eat the same things over and over again. So the more that you weigh out 100 grams of something, the more you're going to know that this is about what 100 grams is. And I think for the average person, once you get a real idea of what that amount of food actually looks like, you can just do it day in, day out yourself and know that you're pretty well on track. And it might mean that if you do continue to eat the same meals day in, day out, and you just have like a day here and there that's different, you might actually stop tracking. And then every now and again, you might go, okay, and I do have a client that does this actually, funnily enough. One of my clients does this because she finds macros just to be a bit too much for her. So what she'll do is she'll track a week. Generally, it's when like she's gotten sick of a certain, meal, or she's changed things up, and she'll track for a week. She'll make some tweaks, and then she won't track again for a good few months.
Yeah.
And then she'll be like, okay, Kris, I need to track again because I feel that either I'm not getting the results that I want, or I feel like I've gained a little bit of extra weight. Maybe I'm sneaking some stuff in. Then she'll track again for a week, and then she'll go back to normal, and she won't track at all for a while. And then I
Yeah.
have clients who track every single day. For the average person who just wants like general health and well-being, you don't have to track all day, every day for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an athlete who's training for a bodybuilding competition, on the other hand, you do. And you need to know if it is 100 grams or if it's 120 grams.
Yeah.
But the thing is that obsessive? It is.
Yeah.
It is. But guess what? If you want to be successful in a sport like bodybuilding, you have to be a little bit obsessive,
Yeah, that's a really good point.
right? It's not about balance. It's not about everything in moderation. It is about getting it to the gram,
Oh, that feeling.
right? But if you're just an everyday athlete who just wants to get fitter, maybe lose a little bit of body fat, get stronger, no, you don't have to be at that level of obsession.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really important. But I mean, at the same time, like even as an athlete, it can get exhausting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've got one of my friends who she's a bodybuilder as well. She finds that she gets to a point even in comp prep, and I remember her telling me, I won't share her name because I haven't got permission to talk about this. But even in comp prep, I remember she said to me that she just got to a point where she was exhausted with tracking her macros. And she said to her coach, she's like, I just need a few days off. And her coach was like, yep, cool, no worries. Now, the thing is, she didn't need a few days off her nutrition. Like she didn't then, in the words of the great Scotty Morrell, she didn't go and eat like an asshole for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
She just didn't track for 3 days because
Yeah.
she found that exhausting. And then she went back to it. For me, I find that tracking is just something that I do. And if I don't track, it actually doesn't feel right.
Mm.
You could say that's obsessive, but so we talked about this, I think, last week after my comps. I said to my coach, like, can I just have a couple of days off? And he said, don't track. On Monday, start tracking again, like literally have the weekend off. I didn't actually take any days off tracking. I just didn't check in
Mm-hmm.
because I felt that, and that's my personality, I felt that I didn't have control over it when I wasn't tracking, and it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So everybody's different. But yeah, honestly, it can be obsessive and it can be addictive. I would argue that there's worse things to obsess over. And initially, you might find that it's obsessive. But if you do feel that you need a break, sometimes you just might need to take a break.
Yeah, and I think for me, I obsess more when I don't track. So for me, and look, when I say it's awareness, not obsession, that's personally for me. People could be very different to this.
Yeah.
But for me, if I don't track every day, which I can't even remember last time I used to day. I don't think I have. But if I, don't put it in my macros, then I obsess over things. And that's where I'm like, nah, I just need to track because then I'm not obsessing. I'm just getting it done and I'm aware of what's there. So yeah, look, it's different for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, the obsession comes when I don't track.
Well, because there's no guessing, right?
Hmm.
Because if you don't track, then in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, am I over on this? Or have I had enough protein? Or have I done this? Or have I done that? And then you start second guessing yourself. Whereas when you track, like,
It's factual numbers. You can't change numbers. So I actually had this conversation with Steve from the Muscle Talks podcast, and we were talking about numbers, and I'm like, how he was saying, like how numbers don't change.
no,
And it's true,
numbers
numbers
don't lie.
don't change. Yeah, they don't lie. They're there. So for me, putting everything and knowing I've hit my numbers or, close to, it makes me feel good and I don't obsess over anything.
Objectivity over subjectivity, logical over emotional.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then my third one. Now, this one I think is super important because I know that we would all need it. So, flexibility matters. So, for me, okay, some days you're going to hit your macros perfectly, and there's going to be some days when life gets in the way. We can't help it, it's going to happen. But I think the real growth is in learning to adjust instead of spiraling.
Mm,
So that's that one right there. Adjust instead of spiraling. Because if you've got flexibility with macros, like we were saying, I think you covered it last time, meal plan, you don't know what the numbers are. So you can't have that flexibility. Where with macros, you do have that flexibility. So if something comes up and you need to change a meal, you can play with that. You can manipulate that to where you need it to be. And that just creates so much more ease in your life to have that flexibility.
well, I mean, life's not perfect, hey?
Far from it.
Like, it happens and it happens on a daily basis. Like,
Yeah.
you can have the best laid out plan for a day or a week, and it can go to shit like at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, so you got 10% great or 50% great and then 50% if you look at it over a year, 50% of the time you're eating your meal plan, but if you're on a plan, but if you don't have macros, that other 50%, what are you going to eat if you don't know how to use the
Yeah.
numbers? So what
Yeah.
have you really gained? Have you really gained anything? Or is that last 50% just wiped everything you've done for the other 50% out?
Yeah. And if we're expecting life to be perfect just because we've set ourselves these goals, well, it's not how the real world works. Like,
No.
you're going to have times where, even like just little things, let's say you've planned all your meals for the week, you've planned your meals for the day, and you've had a crazy morning getting the kids sorted because let's face it, apparently we do school drop off and kindy drop off like once, and then we forget that this has to happen every single day. It's like it's new every single morning. And like it's just mental. And then you rock up, you've done kindy drop off, you've done school drop off, you've got everybody to their places that they need to be on time with their bags packed, with their lunches packed. I'm talking about a friend, of course. And then you've managed to get yourself to work on time, and you know the choreography for Body Step, and you've sorted out all your diary, and like you're just winning life like a freaking champion. And you teach your classes in the morning, you train your client, and then you go to get your lunch out of the fridge and you realize that you left it at home. That's never happened to me, of course.
No.
Then all of a sudden you're like, well, what do I do now? Like,
Yeah.
and if you're on a meal plan and that's what you had planned for lunch, like, what do you do?
And 100% that happened to me so many times at work. Like I've got to work and I forgot my lunch and it's like, shit. And then it's like, now if I was on a meal plan, I'd be screwed because
Mm,
I wouldn't know. But now having been on macros, I can be like, okay, again, like I said before, okay, I know if I get some lettuce, cucumber, some tofu, how much each kind of weighs, and then I can have that and adjust it. Yeah.
yeah. You could duck into a supermarket and like just if you know what your macros were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be for lunch or around where they were supposed to be, you can get a bunch of shit that is going to get as close to it as possible. And
Yeah.
then if it's not, you can just readjust and then you can
Mm-hmm.
sort it out later on in the day.
Yeah,
Easy.
100%. So I think that, yeah, flexibility was a big one because we all need it. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of life. We need flexibility in everything when we think about it. So that was a big one for
Yeah.
me.
Even in comp prep,
Hmm.
because let's face it, your brain doesn't work real well when you're super lean.
No,
Why going to leave stuff
keys
at
in the
home?
fridge. Leaving your house open, not pointing
Oh,
fingers.
Yeah, just leave your keys in your front door and your house wide open and go to work and come back and be like, where's my keys? Oh, they're in
Oh,
the front door.
that comp brain.
Oh my God.
Prep
That
brain.
wasn't even like it in the depths of prep. I reckon that was like only about halfway through, wasn't it?
Yeah, I reckon it was. Oh, the shit that happens though. Like I remember, yeah, I think it was like 2 weeks out of my show day. I was hunting for my keys and I was like, where the hell are my keys? Like I just had them and then I was like, I can't do this. I need to have a protein water and sit for a minute, open the fridge to get my water. And there's my keys. I'm like, fucking hell, man. I was like, obviously, I went to get the protein water, forgot that I wanted the protein water, put my keys in the fridge, shut it, went to look straight for the keys, and I'm like, where's my key? Oh, I need protein water. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, I love that.
So this time around, if I go crazy, just be like, Sally, look in your fridge.
Oh shit, that's too
Oh.
funny.
And look, I think the last thing for me, adding on to all of that is you got to remember that numbers only tell part of your story. So for me, energy levels, sleep,
Mm,
stress,
mm,
your cycle,
yeah,
they all matter just as much because we're not a human calculator. Like we're a living, changing system. And
yeah.
all those other things matter.
Mm,
Hmm.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And that's where, there are going to be those fluctuations in weight, which is why we generally with weight, we work on like a 7-day average instead of like, what's your weight on this particular day? Because like it can change and it can fluctuate. Like even just with me being sick this week, like my weight has just gone to a point where I know the logical side of it, but even I've been a little bit like, bloody hell. But then I'm starting to get better. And already this morning I stepped on the scales and it was back down to where I thought it was or where it
Yeah.
should be. So, like inflammation, your cycle's a huge one,
Oh, yeah.
especially like those few days leading up to your cycle. But yeah, like even just food volume, sleep, if you've had a big weight session, like if you've done a big leg session, you'll generally tend to find a weight increase the next couple of days afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean that covers pretty much the gist of what I've learned. If you were to ask me if I'd ever go back to a meal plan, straight away, no. Never.
Yeah,
Never. I think I'd obsess way too much.
yeah,
I'd overthink and obsess and just it would be not be
yeah,
good.
yeah, definitely. Would you believe that's 32 minutes
Woo,
already?
we nailed it
I
today.
know, we did. We did. If any of our listeners, like if there's that, I mean, pretty much wraps up like our emotional
Mm,
eating, emotional exercise topic. But if any of our listeners have got any questions on macros or anything that you feel that we didn't cover or anything you want us to cover a bit more, just like honestly flick us a message
yeah.
and flick us your questions because like we say every week, this podcast isn't for us.
Hmm.
This podcast is so that we can help other people. So if there's stuff that you want us to cover more, like flick us a message and ask us your questions because we would love to answer them.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it. We are here for you guys. So that's why we do this. We bring up topics, but yeah, don't be like afraid to ask questions about those topics because we're human too. We're not gonna mention everything. So if we have missed something, ask away. Don't be shy.
Definitely. Cool. Well, that's us.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe and share and go
Like
back and
and
listen
comment.
to past ones and comment and all the things. And thanks to our sponsors, Kojo Coffee and
Yep.
Fernwood Salisbury. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time, guys.
Bye bye.